What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I am going to be giving you my thoughts on the first two episodes of the Amazon series, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which, as you know, I have been looking forward to for quite a while because I am a huge Middle-earth fan, as you may be able to tell by the fact that The Hobbit is literally in the name of my channel. Now, a lot of people were skeptical going into this show, but I was willing to give it a chance, and I am happy to report that for the most part, I'm pleased with what I have seen thus far, because I feel these first two episodes provide a solid reintroduction to the world of Middle-earth for both general audiences and Tolkien fans alike. I suppose I may as well get the obvious positives out of the way, but as many people have already pointed out, this show is beautiful. The cinematography is fantastic, and although it can be a little bit visual effects heavy at points, I was just enamored by how engaging this show was visually. It's very distinct, which sets it apart from Peter Jackson's take on Middle-earth, but it still fits within that world. There were several locations on display that reminded me of something within Peter Jackson's vision of this world, but they had a unique visual language inside of this show, which I appreciated. It still felt like the world we are familiar with, while also looking and feeling different. Something else this show needed to get right was the score, because as you all know, Howard Shore's score for the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit films is my favorite of all time, so this series had a lot to live up to in that regard. And I'm happy to say that while I doubt it will become as legendary as Shore's previous work, it still carried on that legacy in a convincing way to me. Shore returned to compose the main theme for the show, and the primary composer for the series, Bear McCreary, did an excellent job building off of his foundation. In a way, his work reminds me of what Ludwig Göransson did for The Mandalorian and the Star Wars franchise as a whole, creating something distinct which is still fitting of the world it resides within. In terms of the story, things are still unraveling at this point in time, so there isn't a lot to talk about, but I'm still enjoying seeing how this mystery is playing out. Galadriel trying to prove that Sauron is still out there reminds me a great deal of Gandalf trying to prove to the White Council in The Hobbit that Sauron was re-emerging. The entire opening prologue being narrated by Galadriel was also very reminiscent of the prologue to The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, with a line of dialogue being almost verbatim from that film, if I'm not mistaken.
History became legend, legend became myth, and for 2,500 years, the ring passed out of all knowledge.
Year gave way to year, century gave way to century, and for many elves, the pain of those days passed out of thought and mind.
I also love all the characters in this show, new and old alike. I suppose some people may take issue with the fact that there are so many different plot lines going on at the same time, but if you ask me, that's something that has always been present with the Middle-earth franchise. In both the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit trilogies, there are several different plot lines that eventually coalesce to form a bigger picture, and it seems like that's what this series is building towards as well. And I appreciate that aside from all the new characters and plot lines, we are actually learning more about older characters like Elrond and Galadriel, rather than them just being nostalgic cameos intended to bait us into watching the show. And that leads us into what most so-called Tolkien purists have been criticizing about this show, which is its accuracy to the source material. That is, in this case, the appendices at the end of The Lord of the Rings, which are, as far as I can remember, a few pages of text. What source material are you referring to exactly? When I say I'm a huge fan of Tolkien and Middle-earth, I mean that I'm a fan of the world he created and the messages he conveyed within his stories. As long as this show maintains some semblance of what I love about Tolkien's stories, then I'll enjoy it. It doesn't matter to me if it 100% adheres to source material that was already minimal in the first place. And believe me, I'm certainly not getting up in arms about how some of the elves and dwarves are black now. With that being said, my biggest problem with this show thus far is one that plagues most modern media nowadays. Even one of my favorite films so far this year, Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, suffered from it, and that is telling rather than showing. One of, if not the most key rule in filmmaking is show don't tell. Film and television are visual mediums. Therefore, it is essential to convey the story through visuals rather than dialogue. But this show has a strange tendency to explain to us characters' histories and relationships with each other while never actually showing them to us. In the first episode, Elrond repeats twice how he and Galadriel are such great friends, but we never really see that on display. Likewise, in the second episode, they really try to invest us in the relationship between Elrond and Durin, the Dwarf King, how Elrond missed his wedding and the birth of his children, which very obviously caused a lot of conflict between them. But once again, we never see any of that. All of it is just told to us, which lessens the emotional impact of those moments. Once again, the story is still unraveling, and there is more time for them to show us these moments. There are 6-hour-long episodes left for them to show us these characters' past histories, and I'm fairly certain that they will do so. But as of right now, my biggest problem with this show is its tendency to tell rather than show. At the end of the day, I'm really enjoying this show so far. Once again, it's not perfect, but as a huge Middle-earth fan, it just makes me so happy to see my favorite world in all of fiction being expanded like this, and I can't wait to see where the story will go from this point on. I might not make weekly videos talking about each episode. I may make videos in chunks, like every 3 episodes I'll talk about the show or something like that. You guys let me know if you'd like to see that in the comments. While you're at it, let me know what your thoughts are on the first 2 episodes of The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. Do you agree with me that it's pretty good so far, or do you disagree with me and think that it's awful? Just whatever your thoughts are, please let me know them all in the comments below. And of course, as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.